Alright guys, this is for January the 13th. Our lesson tonight is going to be on fractions of an area with halves, fourths, and eighths. So if you would, go ahead and have your notebook and that 4x6 rectangle sheet in front of you. You're going to need that. Alright, great. Let's go ahead and get started then. If you would, take a look at my 4x6 rectangle, and let's pretend that this 4x6 rectangle is a sandwich that I've made for lunch. And I decided that I'm only going to eat half, or 1/2 of the sandwich. Right now, pause the video and shade in on one of your 4x6 rectangles 1/2 of this sandwich. Alright, let's take a look at some of the options we had for 1/2. We know that if we are talking about the fraction 1/2, that today in class we learned that the denominator, the number that is on the bottom, the denominator, tells us how many equal pieces we had to divide our whole into. And the numerator, which tells us how many of those pieces that we're talking about or interested in. So in this, I asked you to do 1/2 of the sandwich. So I know that I need to take my sandwich and divide this into 2 equal parts. So probably the most obvious, and maybe you did this way, is right here. And that would be this part right here. So this part is 1/2. Now let's check that, because we should have 2 equal parts, and we do. We have this part of my sandwich, and we have this part, and we can see that we can prove that they are the same size. They each have 12 little squares in each one. However, this is not the only way that you could have divided this sandwich in half. Let's take a look at a different way that we could have. Maybe you decided to cut the sandwich like this. Draw that again for you. So again, we still have 2 equal parts. That's our denominator. And I'm interested in one of those so this would also be 1/2. One out of the 2 parts. Let's take another look though, and there is another way that you could have cut this. And when I make sandwiches for my wife and I, she insists that I cut her sandwiches this way in half. And maybe you like yours also. So we can see that there are 2 different parts here, and they are equal. This one in red and this one in blue. So both of these are 1/2. Two equal parts or pieces, and I'm interested in one of those, eating one of those for lunch. Now, let's take let's take a look at a different scenario. Let's say that's still our sandwich. And instead of eating 1/2 for lunch, I only want to eat 1/4. So I only want 1/4 of the sandwich. Stop the video and to see if you can trade in 1/4 of this sandwich. And to be more specific, it must be in one piece, not two or more disconnected pieces. All right, let's take a look. And the fraction 1/4 is made up of the numerator 1 and the denominator 4. So I know the denominator tells me how many equal parts I must divide my whole into. So how many equal parts I must divide my whole into? So I know I've got to divide this into 4 equal parts. Well, if you thought about today, we knew if we take a half and we halve that half again, we will get 4 equal pieces. And each of these sections would be 1/4. That was one way that you could have divided that into 4 equal parts. But let's take another. Was that the only way? Of course there wasn't. Let's see if there's another way that we can divide this. How about if I divide it like this? Is this 4 equal pieces? Yes, it is. We can see each one has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 little squares in it. So we know that this is 1/4, this is 1/4, this is 1/4, and this is 1/4. Of course, you might have seen this a little differently. Let's take another look at another way that we could have broken this into 4ths. And I'm going to use different colors, so bear with me here. And we can see that we have 4 equal parts here, each one being 1/4. Again, we just don't want to say they look alike. We want to mathematically prove, and we can see that in each section in this, there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 little squares. There are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 little squares in that section. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 squares in that section. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 squares in that section. So we mathematically prove that they are all equal. Again, going back to our discussion in class today, is that the denominator tells us how many equal parts we must divide the whole into. The numerator tells us how many of those we're interested in. All right, one more that we're going to talk about, and I'll let you go, is eighths. Eighths. If we were going to take the same sandwich and I wanted, let's not just say 1/8. Let's say I wanted 3/8. Let's make it a little more challenging. I want 3/8 of my sandwich for lunch. So again, if you would, pause it and see if you can shade in 3/8 of this rectangle. All right, so let's take a look. First, we want to look at how many equal pieces or parts must I divide my sandwich into. Well, our denominator tells us that, which is 8. So I must look at this and see if I can divide this into 8 equal pieces. Well, if I think about what we did in class today in eighths, if you remember, we first did a half, and then we folded a half, and then we folded and got fourths, and we folded again and got eighths. So let me first divide this into halves. And then if I halved my halves, we see I have 4 equal pieces now. And now if I have my halves, or 4, excuse me, that I just did, I now have 8 equal pieces. Now, should I just shade in one of those eighths? We know that each one of these is an 8, 8, 8, 8, 1/8, 1/8, 1/8, 1/8. There are my 8 eighths. It is my numerator that tells me how many of those. It is my numerator that tells me how many of those that I want to eat. 3 out of the 8. So if I were going to show this, there would be 1, 1/8, 2/8, and 3/8. So this amount that I have shaded in is 3/8 of my sandwich. And as you can see, that's just a little less than 1/2 of the sandwich. So, for you right now, let's see if you can show me can you show me on this rectangle, can you show me 3/4? So on your rectangle, shade in 3/4 of my sandwich here. You can pause it and then we'll come back and check it. 3/4. All right, hopefully you paused it. Let's go through and see how you did. Again, anytime that we're finding a fraction amount of something, the fraction gives us all the information that we need. We know that the denominator tells us how many equal pieces I should divide my whole into. In this case, I should divide my whole into 4 equal pieces. Okay. So if I do that, I can draw a line here. That's 2 equal pieces and 1 right here, and now I have 4 equal pieces. Now I need the next piece of the puzzle, which is the numerator. And it tells us how many we're interested in. So in this case, out of the 4 pieces, I'm interested in 3 of those 4. So there's 1, 2, 3. So 3/4 of my sandwich, which you can see is almost all of it. We are lacking only 1/4 of not finishing it. All right. So as a quick recap for today, halves, fourths, and eighths. Make sure that you go back and understand the denominator and numerator and what each of those means. All right, I'll see you in class tomorrow.